Hi, guys. I'm Dr. Jenny White, a dentist in Sarasota, Florida, and her fearless patient, Susan, with our new and exciting podcast, Open Wide, Be Careful What You Tell Your Dentist. Over the past 25 or so years, I've been sitting in a little room talking to myself all day, and I've gained a lot of wisdom through that process, which I want to share with you. We are two women in our mid-whatevers who want to have fun and talk about our daily lives in a Seinfeld kind of way, although we admit we are far from Jerry Seinfeld in the humor department. We hope our podcast casts optimism and fearlessness to you, so you can remember that you can rise to the top, stay at the top, and dream bigger than you've ever imagined. Today is a special day, Susan, for many reasons. We're alive, yep. But even more so, we have our first guest with us today.
Yay.
I'd like to introduce our listening audience to Dr. Robert Hammond, or as I call him, Dr. Bob. So on today's podcast, the soup du jour is balancing smiles and Ironman miles. Dr. Bob, welcome to the podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here and an honor, of course.
We are so thrilled that you're here. I'd like to start by telling everyone about how we met, so many years ago. I was setting up my second office location, and Dr. Hammond was getting ready to move his location to a different location. That's a lot of locations. I found out about this through a friend of a friend of a friend. I ended up taking Dr. Bob's space as he moved to a different location. It was in that crossing that we became friends. Ultimately, I'm now in my third dental location, and let me tell you, moving dental offices is very difficult, and the plumbing requirements are ridiculous. And Dr. Hammond is now working out of state, but still maintains a residence here. Did I get that like 50% right?
I think that's pretty accurate, yes. Out of state, way out of state.
Out of state, out of mind.
Out of mind, exactly.
Right. So, okay, with that said, I want to dive into your amazing and jaw-dropping athletic career.
Okay.
For starters, how many Ironmans, triathlons, and marathons have you completed? And for our listeners, an Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, and a 26.2 mile run all together in one race in one day.
Same day.
Yeah. So take it away, Dr. Bob. How many of these have you done?
I was trying to tally that up last night, and I think I came up with 33 Ironman races that I've completed. Started and completed, so I never dropped out of one yet, but there's always tomorrow. And I think I'm up to 63 marathons, separate from the Ironman marathons. So, and that includes 22 Boston marathons and 18 New York City marathons.
Wow. And so triathlon, is that the same as an Ironman, just a smaller one?
Well, it's just Ironman is kind of the long distance triathlon. Triathlon typically is swim, bike, and run. So the difference between an Ironman and, let's say, a sprint triathlon or an Olympic distance triathlon is just the distance. But typically they do involve the swim, the bike, and the run. So you might have an Olympic distance, which is 40K on the 1,500 meter swim. I hope we can get into metrics here. But anyway, the metric system. But it's a 40K bike, so that's 24.8 miles, and then a 10K run, or 6.2 miles. So that's an Olympic distance, and that's what they do in the Olympics. But it was called Olympic distance even before it was an Olympic sport, which first happened in Sydney Olympics in 2000. But anyway, and we've had a lot of sprint distance triathlons around the Sarasota area, and And then there's also half Ironmans, which is now called Ironman 70.3 because it's 70.3 miles, 1.2 mile swim, 56 mile bike, 13.1 mile half marathon run. So 70.3, which is half of 140.6, which is what the total distance of a full Ironman would be. So
how did you get into this? Like, were you a sprinter in high school and college? Or like, how did you?
Well, in high school and college, I was more or less just used to go to the park and did no organized sports at all, really. Just went to the playgrounds. I grew up in New York City and Brooklyn, of course, the great town of Brooklyn.
That explains the accent.
Is there a hint of it there? I don't know. I could talk like that sometimes, but
Yeah, I was
anyway,
going to say, I don't hear an accent, but now I do.
I
Yeah.
lost it somewhere along the way. I
Yeah.
lost it somewhere along the way.
Mm.
And anyway, so I played a lot of sports all the time, and I was very athletic, but I was more into weightlifting and, trying to show off and trying to impress the girls and try to get big muscles, which never really worked. But anyway, got into college and kind of did the same thing, a lot of beer drinking. And that was probably the biggest endurance sport I had. But and once in a while I would go out for a run, but not very often. And then got into a Georgetown dental school. That's where I went to dental school. And in my fourth year, one of my friends who had more, was braver than I, had more guts than I did. He was involved in an aerobics, high intensity aerobics class at Georgetown with maybe 50 women and 3 guys. And I'm like, I'm not going in there. I'm kind of shy. And anyway, he talked me into it. I went in there. I got my butt kicked, but I really enjoyed the new sensation of actually doing aerobic exercises versus just, kind of the basketball thing and the weightlifting thing. And that made me come back the next day and the next day and the next day. And before you know it, I went from the back row and I'm in the front row doing all these, moves, kind of show off a little bit. And I got pretty good rhythm by the end of that. And that was my senior year of Georgetown, which when I graduated, it's like, I didn't miss dental school, but I missed my aerobics class. So what do I do? My father used to listen to a public radio personality who was a kind of a health food exercise guru. And he says, he starts a new marathon training program every 6 months. And he says, so they're going to start one up right after the New York City Marathon. And so I said, really? Okay. And I'm missing, like my aerobics fix, my endorphins, my all those positive neurotransmitters that come with aerobic exercise. So I showed up, it was a couple weeks later, I showed up at Central Park, 90th Street and 5th Avenue, and started training for the marathon with this really nice group of maybe 100 people or something that listened to on the radio also. And 6 months later, I ran my first marathon, which was the Jersey Waterfront Marathon, which that year was the Olympic trials for Americans. And I wound up running like 3 hours and 20 minutes, which, I didn't even know. Back then, I didn't even have a stopwatch. I had just my regular, my graduation watch on. And
your Timex.
And I swore, I'm like, this is horrible. Let me get through this. I'd never do this again. This is awful. And then about, after getting out of the medical tent and because I was hypothermic, and I said, let me start to think, well, I think I could do better next time. It's amazing how quickly you go from I'm never going to do this again till I think I could do better next time. And so the next marathon was the New York City Marathon in 2008. And then I improved my time, and that was a real struggle. I remember that really well. It was almost as hard as a day of dentistry, but it was, Jenny knows that. Emotionally speaking,
That's right.
Physically, it was harder. But I just gutted my way through the 5 boroughs of New York, starting in Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, Manhattan, the Bronx, then back to Manhattan, Central Park, Tavern on the Green finish. And there I was with my second one. And that was just the ball started rolling, and I started to pick up some momentum with the marathon thing. And so every 6 months I was training for another one. And in between there'd be a lot of 10K races and half marathons and 5Ks and just about every distance. Back then I was living in Brooklyn, and they had the New York Roadrunners Club had races in Central Park every weekend. And I love nothing better than going to Central Park on the weekend and just cleansing the mind and cleansing the body. And of course I'd run in Brooklyn during the week. And anyway, so it was just, it was therapy. It was therapy, really. It was therapeutic. And it was probably as much or more for the mind than it was for even the body.
Mm.
And we talk a lot on this podcast about what we need to do to stay balanced and level-headed, so to
Yeah.
speak, and exercise is a huge part of that. I wanted to go into a little bit about the training for these races, mentally and physically. And do you enjoy, what kind of training do you do, but do you enjoy training more or do you enjoy the actual race more?
Yeah, so I think the process or the training would probably be more of the lifestyle is probably more what I'm in it for. The race is kind of the icing on the cake, the goal that sort of, makes you commit to the process. So yeah, I think when all is said and done, it's the training and the process that is sort of the main thing that is most important. And the actual the actual race is you get to the race, and depending on the race, if it's a marathon, you start to get pretty stressed about it. And am I going to be good enough for this one? And will I make it to the finish line? Will I disappoint my friends who I've been bragging to the last 6 months? And back in the old days before computers, they had to look through the New York Times for 2 hours to find your little, out of 25,000 people. Now there's no hiding. Every 5K, your splits pop up. But back then, you had time to make up excuses as to why you didn't do as well as you had planned to do. But anyway, yeah. So I think it's the process. And if I back up just a minute, the club that I joined also was more of a holistic club. It was called the Natural Living Club. So we actually incorporated exercise as part of health. And, you could be very fit and very unhealthy. You could be very, so that's the thing. This was about diet. This was about lifestyle. This was about, the mind, being in the moment. That was kind of what our, the head of our running club was preaching at the time. And, so it was great. And the group of people that were attracted to that were not just your typical, how much do you charge for a crown kind of thing as we, do in dentistry, or, how long does it take to do a filling or whatever it was. It was just like a departure from that. And it was more of as I mentioned, just a holistic thing. So it became a lifestyle with diet, with exercise, and I always thought of the running as kind of an active meditation of sorts, and it was addictive in a way. There was nothing better for me than getting to a nice crisp day in Central Park and doing a 20-mile run, training for the marathon, which was anyway. So that was kind of the way it kind of went.
I have a question on balance. Jenny talks about you as being a great father, a great husband, a great dentist. I now understand you're a great musician. How do you balance all those aspects of your life with your extreme sport? I think that some people have got to sacrifice for you to have that kind of effort. Talk to me about balance.
I think a lot of people think that if you do an Ironman or a marathon, that you have to spend endless amounts of hours to train to do it. And honestly, you don't. I was more of a minimalist, lower end volume person. So I sort of valued quality training over quantity, where some people will do 60, 80, 100 miles a week of running. I might have done 40 and combined it with some weightlifting and things like that. So I think you don't have to make it a second job necessarily.
Okay.
You could easily incorporate it into your lifestyle. 10 hours a week would be enough for me. And some weeks it would be more, some weeks it could be less. But 10 to 12, even less, you can get me through an Ironman. And even if that's 3 sports. So if I was only doing the one sport, which is just the running, which I did between 1987 and 1998 when I did my first Ironman, you didn't have to spend tons of time doing it. So that's probably the way I could fit it in pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that allows the balance.
And it sounds like this group that you started with really started you off on the right path, a holistic approach, a whole body, a whole mind approach, sort of the be here now. Have you along the way, Bob, had any mentors or have you turned to other people to keep you going? Because you've done this for X number of years with success. So, did you seek help from anyone on different aspects of your training?
Well, you sort of adopt new heroes, or people that you admire in the sport. So there were back in the day, the early days of running and triathlon. There were certain triathletes that Dave Scott, Mark Allen, Scott Molina, Scott Tinley. They were called the Big Four, and that was Paula Newby Fraser on the women's side, and the Puntis twins. And anyways, so there were some really good people, and these people were famous within the triathlon circles, but they were not so famous that they'd be recognized by the average person. So they were very approachable. And I would go to, camps with, let's say, Dave Scott or Mark Allen, and then you see them on the Wide World of Sports or wherever they were telecasting the Ironman that year, and you would see your heroes just there. But then I remember going to Vail, Colorado for a week with Dave Scott, and he had Ray Browning there, who was another Ironman winner, and so these were kind of the stars of the sport, but they weren't like the stars of Hollywood where you could never get to them, But you can get to the stars of triathlon, but you can't get to. I can't see Tom Cruise if he's not gonna give me an acting camp or anything like
Right,
that.
I've already tried. Yeah, you can't get through.
Right. Neil Diamond rejected my request for a voice lesson, but anyway, anyway.
Another question that I have, if I may, and Susan,
Yeah.
forgive me if I interrupted you. I'm wondering, in this world of chaos that we currently have, the past couple years, I would say, chaos in many different ways. I'm thinking that these athletic events possibly put everyone on the same level playing field, kind of normalize everyone, possibly bring out commonalities amongst everyone. And everybody that's there has a personal goal of some sort. I mean, you
Right.
hear these inspiring stories of what
Yeah.
people have been through. Can you talk a little bit about how this exercise phenomenon normalizes and brings people together, and what were some of the common goals that you had for doing these races along the way?
Yeah, that was really interesting with the first group the first club that I trained with, and that was we didn't even really know what everybody did. Nobody, a few people might have known I was a dentist, but they didn't care. Kind of like today, but still, certain things never change. But anyway, but we didn't really focus on how they made their money. We don't know where they live. We all came together. So you would probably have you would have your quote unquote professionals, you'd have your business people, you'd have your plumbers, you'd have your police officers, firemen, and firefighters. I'm sorry, and you would so you would basically be in a group of people that were not like going to a dental conference, as you know, and I know, Jenny, how much you love going to dental conferences.
You know what? It happens every year, and it's just something we do.
Something we do.
That's right.
And we find some camaraderie with other dentists. And,
Absolutely.
So we find the camaraderie. And the other thing that was also a revelation was the fact that I could be friends with somebody who was 70 years old, 75 years old. And we really did have the same goal, which was to make it to to get to the New York Marathon or the Boston Marathon or whatever marathon happened to be on the agenda. And we would all meet, and some people were faster and some people were slower, but it didn't matter. And all of a sudden you were sort of making friends with people that were 50 years older than you or 40 years older than you. And it kind of brought you together in that respect too. So it kind of broke down those barriers, and it also made me realize that you didn't have to get old and just frail. You can get old and be very active, be very have a lot of vitality, and be very healthy, and strive for that even into the later years. And that was always motivational. And I remember having parties with these people and birthday parties or whatever, and yeah, we had just people from all walks of life and all age groups, and it was really pretty cool.
I can imagine that the mental preparation is as important as the physical preparation when you go into one of these long races. Tell us about the types of things that you do to prepare and how you stay motivated, sort of in the middle when you're like, what was I thinking? What am I doing this for? Is there a technique that you use? I'm sure you don't listen to podcasts. You certainly won't listen to watch. That'll drop you out of the race.
Except this one.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, back in the old days, of course, I wish there was podcasts. I think if they had as much technology back then as we do now, you could find 10, 20, 30 different people on YouTube that could tell you a better way to train, or this is the way you should do your exercises specific for, whatever you were doing. But back then we had to rely on magazines and just speaking to people and, something I don't know if we do as much as we used to, but I wish we'd do more of. But anyway, but the mental preparation was probably part of the physical preparation. So you would, as you got closer to the race, you sort of, as you, let's say, would go deep into a long run, you would sort of start to imagine yourself, okay, well, if I feel like this during the race, what am I going to do? What technique am I going to use? And also you could just kind of sit in a chair, do your little meditation, and imagine yourself at different points of the race. And it wasn't so much, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to go do it, for that sub 3 hour marathon or whatever it is. It's more or less, okay, I hit a bump of the road, figuratively speaking. What am I going to do? And, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take a mental inventory. I'm going to do what I can at the moment. I'm going to shorten my stride. So these you sort of rehearse ahead of time so that on race day, you're not all of a sudden faced with what you haven't already experienced in your own mind. So I think that was probably part of the mental preparation. In the case of Ironman training, you're on a 100-mile bike ride. You're going to feel some pain at points, and you're going to be trying to get calories in, which is the difference between the Ironman. You have to make sure you're getting your calories in during the race and during training. And you just kind of think, okay, well, if this is the race and I'm feeling, kind of this low spot, what do you do? You do the best you can, and you try to tell yourself, okay, this might not be my day, or I may just be going through a bad patch. And you sort of rehearse that ahead of time, and then it's not such a surprise on the day of. And
so you just push through then. Yeah.
You push through, and sometimes some people like to disengage, just put themselves in another place and just imagine themselves laying on a beach somewhere. And I do the opposite. I sort of engage and sort of embrace, as they say, pardon me, embrace the suck. The sucks.
Yeah.
Embrace the suck. Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Roger.
I didn't coin that term, but I've used it in the past. And yes, you sort of, okay, this hurts, but it's this too will pass. And especially during the Ironman, you will go through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of peaks and valleys during the race, and just have confidence that you will get through it. And you can have silly little mantras. Once in a while I'd sing, Paul Simon, kicking down the cobblestones, looking for fun and feeling groovy, or sometimes it would be Eye of the Tiger, or I might go back to a mantra from Bill Murray and What About Bob? Baby steps up the hill, Dr. Marvin, something to that effect. And for those of us old enough to remember What About Bob. But anyway, there's a lot of different mental preparation and practice that goes into it as well. And anyway, so yeah.
With all this conversation about exercise, I'm starting to sweat over here. So with that said, I'd like to maintain our balance by tasting Susan's amazing cocktail of the podcast. And Susan, I hope it has electrolytes in it so that we can get out on that race field and go for the gold.
Well, I do think that this one is going to keep you running. Let's just put it that way. Okay, so Bob, this is a toast to you,
Oh,
This will get your heart racing. That's the unofficial name. The official name is actually Black-Eyed Susan.
oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Perfect.
And let me tell you what's in it. I'll start with the healthy ingredients: some honey,
Oh, I love
some
it.
lemon juice,
Okay.
some orange juice, some peach schnapps, and some whiskey.
Excellent.
Black-Eyed Susan.
Ooh,
Excellent.
black-eyed
Next-
Susan.
All right. Do we
Cheers.
chug it or sip it? I don't know.
Well, you'll want to determine that.
I'll decide it.
Now
Yeah.
that is lovely.
That's lovely, isn't it? Nice
It's
summer
like
drink.
a summer fresh drink.
Yeah. So
Very-
I know
very
we don't
nice.
have very much more time. I have a question. I know you've got one too, Jenny. But is there an end game? Like, can you race until you're 99? And is there a bucket list of races that you still want to get to? Because I know there's one called Enduro Man, and there's like triple
Right.
ultra marathons and
Yeah.
or triathlons or whatever, Ironmans. What's your bucket list look like?
Yeah, so I think I mean, my favorite race used to be up in British Columbia. I did that one 13 times, and that was my escape in August it was just beautiful, the Okanagan Valley up in British Columbia. But, so I have a tendency to want to do new races, but also repeat the ones that I love, like Boston and New York and such. But I also did Hawaii 3 times, and Austria was probably my favorite one. Probably because I love the sound of music, excuse me, and I wanted to run along those same hills that Julie Andrews had so long ago, back in 1966. Just kidding, but sort of serious. But anyway, so I do want to go back to do that one in Austria. We made some friends there, so that would be great. And also, there's a couple other European ones that are sort of there. But initially, I think I got into the Ironman thing because of the fact that the Ironman Hawaii, which is kind of the granddaddy of them all, was back in 1978 when it started. So everybody wanted to get to that one and qualify for that one. I don't know if I have to go back there. I've been there a few times already, and it's great. It's a spectacle, but I think I'd rather do something which is. I have a couple more on the. On the list. As far as age, I have a friend who's 76, going on 77 in Hawaii, and we're planning to meet down in Cozumel in November to do Ironman Cozumel, which I've done a few times already, but that's a great race. So yeah, there's a couple of, I'd like to do the London Marathon, perhaps, and do that one sometime. And anyway, yeah, so Berlin would be great to go there and do Berlin. That's kind of the world record course. And so, yeah, there's a bunch of them, but I know that I don't have enough time to probably get to them all. But there are some that I hope that I will get to. I don't have any desire to do double Ironman, triple Iron. There's a deck Ironman that they used to do like 10 times. It was over the course of a week or two, or stuff that I think is like, okay, well, enough is enough. That's too much of a bad thing is not a good thing, and or too much of a good thing, depending on how you look at it. But so yeah, that's
Well, I admire your strength and your endurance. It's amazing. That's quite a feat. I couldn't
And also the desire to keep going, do more, discover more, branch out, think about other ones like that. Just to have that optimistic, motivating sort of attitude all these years, that's pretty impressive to me.
Well, to quote a great singer, when they asked him if why do you want to do this when you don't have to, and he said, "You don't understand. I don't want to do it. I have to do it."
Yeah.
And I think it is just to sort of try to keep, as the old another song. There we go. Keep the old man out, and just try to maintain fitness and health for as long as possible, and not just throw in the towel and just. I mean, there's nothing wrong with just relaxing and being retired and getting hunched over and weaker, but you could also fight it and try to maintain your vitality, your health, your fitness for as long as possible. There was one quick story. There was a guy who was 103 years old. He was a Frenchman who set the world record for 1 hour. He rode 14.7 miles on the velodrome in Paris.
Wow.
And they thought, well, gee, somebody decided, let's test this guy because he was a cyclist for all his life. Anyway, they put him through some rigorous training at 103 years old, and he came back at 104, and he blew away his previous year's record by like he went 15.5 miles and increased his VO2 max, which is one of the markers that some of the doctors of today talk about as being one of the primary markers that measures longevity and health. So anyway, he was able at 103 years old to increase by over 10%, 10 to 15% his VO2 max. And,
amazing.
Yeah. So
That's
it just goes to
amazing.
show you that the body is capable of a lot of things as long as the mind is willing to push it to that. And if you can enjoy the process, as we talked about earlier, that makes it that much easier to justify getting up and doing that.
Yeah. Wow.
I'd like to also
He
ask.
lived to 109, by the way. And,
Wow.
What?
And he had
Oh,
a
my.
and he had an exercise. He had a bike in his retirement home, and he rode every single day. So anyway,
Oh my God.
That's motivating.
That is
Because I
motivating.
want to live to 125. So that is going to, yes. Oh,
You
yeah.
do?
Get on that
With all the
Peloton, Jenny.
genetics and things that are going on out there, why not? If I can have my faculties about me, let's go. 125. Okay.
absolutely.
Speaking of being strong and getting stronger, Susan usually has a tip of the podcast, and I think this is the time where she is going to demonstrate her tip.
So, so we do this tip of the day. It doesn't sort of fit with anything else we're doing, so I don't know if we'll keep it or not. But
Everything fits.
so, because I have two dentists here today, the tip of the day is: did you know? You probably learned this in dental school. Did they teach you what to do with like toothpaste besides put it in your
What do you
mouth?
mean dental school? You mean I went to dental school? Oh.
So, did you know that toothpaste takes out stains out of coffee cups? All right, so I have a coffee cup here that's very stained with coffee. I mean, it's clean and everything, but it's still stained with coffee. And if you take your toothbrush and put-
Susan is literally brushing
toothpaste.
a coffee mug with a toothbrush
The stains
as we
come out.
speak, and the stains are
Yeah.
coming out.
Right, and everybody needs to take my word for it because nobody can actually see, but the stains are coming out. Okay?
That's
so there you
amazing.
go.
Susan,
A
I
tip
did not know
to the
that.
dentist about toothpaste and a toothbrush.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And any
That's-
toothpaste will do, I guess.
Well,
I mean,
guess.
yeah.
This is the one I usually pick up from your office.
Yeah,
Whatever.
it's probably a Crest or a Colgate. Yeah.
Jenny, I think you want the whitening toothpaste.
Yo, yeah, and the whitening
And the
toothpaste.
tartar
What a
control.
great idea. It'll turn your coffee mug a different color. Let's do it. Thank you, Susan. That was awesome. And I did not know that. So, Bob, I know you ran the Boston Marathon in 2013.
Yes.
The bombing.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting day. I went out and I was actually training for Ironman Austria that year. So my coach, I had a coach at the time, and he was. I had a little bit of an Achilles problem, so he said, in his British accent, "Do not go the whole way, Bob. Do not." I can't do a British accent, but anyway, he said, "Does anybody know how to do a
No,
British
not me.
I try, but it's
Well,
not good.
Yeah.
You're stupid if you go." It sounded so intelligent coming from a British guy, but anyway, do not go the entire way. And so anyway, Susan was waiting at the 18-mile mark, which was as far as the T would bring her.
Your
from,
wife.
Yeah,
And Susan is your amazing wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, Susan.
Amazing.
Who I met by the way, at the Natural Living Club in Central
Aw.
Park. So
Who
that's,
also looks pretty fit and a marathon runner herself.
she's
so
done
it
15 or
looks
16
like it's
in
a
her.
family affair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, but yeah, so she was waiting and I stopped, even though everything about me was like, I want to just go to the finish line. But I remember this coach, he's going to get mad at me if he sees that I finished the race, and that's not the goal. So I stopped, and it was between the 35 and the 40K mark, and or between the 30 and 35K mark. Anyway, I'm on the Newton Hills. You being a New Englander would know where that is. So after the firehouse, and you go up the Newton Hills to Heartbreak Hill. Anyway, so her brother was also in the race, but he was in the fourth wave. I was waiting with no intention to finish this race. I was going to wait for him to come by and stop, and we were going to get on the T and head back to Boylston Street. Instead, he's all excited when he sees us. He goes, "Let's all walk the rest of the way." So I'm like, "Well, okay." I'm all. So we started walking. Anyway, we got to Fenway Park, which is just a mile, the last mile before the race. And all of a sudden we start hearing sirens and emergency vehicles. We see them. and people are walking the other way. And we find out that there had been something that happened at the finish line, which we didn't know at the time. And then all of a sudden, word gets out that there was a bombing, and it was such a contrast, because we were walking along and we were walking along the course and saying, this is great, because the Boston police are so mellow. They just kind of let you, just whoever, you're not even in the race, and they don't pull you off the course as they would in New York. And so it went from being that lighthearted experience to finding our way back to our hotel with a SWAT member with a machine gun in front of the hotel, and everybody being locked down for several hours while they just made sure that there was no other bombings, that they were searching, knocking on doors and things like that. So it was so different than any other year that I'd ever been to the Boston Marathon. And so it was such a shame that it happened to a race where typically they would allow people who weren't even qualified to start the race at the end. And now all of a sudden after that, it sort of changed everything, where there was much more security involved with the race. But the day of the race was just chaotic after I remember just walking back to the hotel with just all kinds of helicopters, and it just, nobody really knew what was happening. And it was just such a shame.
Yeah.
It was kind of the end of the innocence of 100.
It used to be such a joyous occasion, and now everybody's still wary all these years later. I'm from Boston, so that's my hometown. I was very proud of how Boston conducted themselves in the aftermath of that. They came together, the Boston Strong thing.
Boston Strong.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. It was,
And actually, there was a good, I think, I forgot the name of the Patriots Day, I think it's called, with Mark Wahlberg. It was a movie they did, which actually was a very good movie in terms of staying pretty close to the way things happened on that day. So, anyway.
If anyone has questions about Ironmans, triathlons, or marathons, how to balance any and all of it, you can always email Dr. Bob. He has so much experience being a professional and an elite athlete, and he can probably balance on a balance beam, I would guess, too. You can get in touch with him at rjhammond, HAMMOND 123 at gmail.com. That's rjhammond123 at gmail.com. As we wrap our guest podcast with Dr. Bob, I'd like to remind all of us that even if we do not complete the athletic feats that Dr. Bob has completed, we still can rise to the top, stay at the top, and dream bigger than we've ever imagined. Feel free to contact Dr. Bob, and if you enjoyed what you heard, please share this podcast with friends and family. Wow, what fun, right?
Thank you.
That's an Ironman wrap.
Thank you. We learned a lot today. That was really interesting.
Awesome.
Thanks for being our first guest.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for making me or allowing me to be your first guest.
Well, I want to thank you for listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. If you did, please share the show with friends and family and subscribe to our YouTube channel. This way, you'll never miss weekly drops. Stay strong, dream big, and floss your teeth.